Yo, shalom, shalom. You are now tuning in to all that R.A.R.A with your Hebrew brother Milo Judah. And this episode will be pertaining to Mr. Kanye West and his quote-unquote anti-Semitic statements. So, brothers, this thing that we participate in called life, every day is a learning experience. Every day. And we have to take advantage of that every day. And there is things that we think we know, things that we think we are rock solid with information on, that turns out to not necessarily be the truth. It just is what it is. And why do I say that? Well, I say that because growing up, we were taught one thing about who we are and where we are from. But it's never really any closure to that. Right? They just say, well, you're African, you came over here on slave ships, and now you're here. But every other country, or every other race of people, I should say, they have a country, or, some type of land named after them. You got Nigerians, they're from Nigeria. You got Italians, they are from Italy. You have Puerto Ricans, they're from Puerto Rico. You have the Chinese, they are from China. But then you turn your attention back to the so-called black man. Where is his land? Where is he from? Is he from the land of black? Is his country the country of black? What is his original tongue? What language did he speak? There are over 50 countries and over 3,000 tribes in the land of Africa. So when you say things like black people are African, I want you to understand that you're not really saying anything. You're not denoting what race you are. You're not denoting who your forefathers are or your ancestors. You're not saying anything of significance. And when our people say things like, oh, well, our ancestors did this and did that, 9 times out of, I'm willing to say about 9.8 times out of 10, those people don't even know who their ancestors were. Right? So then you have this individual who everybody deems as crazy comes out and say, well, black people are the original Jews. Now you had Nick Cannon say black people are Hebrews. You've had Deshaun Jackson come out and say black people are Hebrews. But they've all went back and backpedaled and apologized for their statements. But with Mr. West, there is a major difference to his approach. Mr. West is coming from the standpoint of someone that is fed up. He is coming from the standpoint of an individual who knows he's mind controlled, but he's trying to break the programming. And you have a lot of individuals today will say he's being selfish and he's not genuine in his statements, which whether he is or whether he isn't, that has nothing to do with me. But it's their prerogative if they see it like that. But what they don't understand is the Most High, he can use whoever he wants to bring forth truth. Now it's up to you whether you're willing to do the groundwork and do the research and see if the things that Mr. West is saying is true. Even Floyd Mayweather said that the real Jews were black. So, brothers, let's go ahead and dive into Mr. West's statements. And let's see if we can verify his statements. So with that being said, we are going to do some real and rare analysis. Let's get it. So we see right here that Mr. West stated that everybody knows the movie Get Out is about me. Now you may ask yourself, why would he say that? Well, the movie Get Out is about mind control. That's what it's about, mind control. So you may think that, that movie is strictly about the so-called white man wanting to take the mind of a so-called black man and be him, which is true. That was a subplot that they made seem like the main plot. But the main plot was MK Ultra, mind control. And with Kanye West tweeting that, he was basically letting it be known that he is under mind control. Okay. So let's see here. This is an article called "Silence is Golden." Obviously, it's by this so-called white man by the name of Jim Adams. But what is this article pertaining to? But for you brothers who don't know, this image or this idol here is an idol of Harpocrates, also known as Horus in the ancient Egyptian mythology. Right, so it says Harpocrates was the Greek and Roman god of silence in the Hellenistic period, who was adapted by the Greeks from the Egyptian child god Horus. Right? It says to the ancient Egyptians, Horus was the newborn sun rising each day at dawn, and he was depicted in statues as a child holding up a finger to his mouth. So, a quick side note: all of these ancient religions, they all stem from the ancient Babylonian religion. That's where they had a father god, a mother goddess, and a child of God, right? So you have Nimrod, you have Semiramis, and of course you have Tammuz. So there, in ancient Egypt, you have Osiris, you have Isis, and of course you have Horus, right? So anyway, it says Harpocrates was the god of silence, secrets, and confidentiality, and also an embodiment of hope. When the Greeks conquered Egypt under Alexander the Great, they transformed the Egyptian Horus into the Hellenistic god known as Harpocrates. This god eventually developed wings and become Hippocratic arrows, which in turn become Cupid. Cupid is linked specifically with being a child, and the connection with wings suggests that the influence of Horus's falcon wings that span the sky, thus representing the young morning sun. Right, and it says children are known to make noise, and adults will often need to hush them by saying shh, and at the same time placing their index finger to their mouth, making the hand gesture that is a sign of silence. To the ancient Greeks, this hand gesture was interpreted as a gesture of silence and secrecy. They may have thought that this hand gesture was a way of stopping our lips from moving, or perhaps it was seen as a plug for the mouth. Harpocrates was connected with the sun. This is most likely where the phrase silence is golden originated, golden like the sun. As a toddler god, Harpocrates was depicted in a cutesy fashion with his finger held up to his mouth. I guess it is lucky that he did not become the god of nail biting and nose picking. Not much has been heard about him since those times, but some people have a theory that he was reincarnated as Harpo Marx because he was the only Marx brother that never spoke on screen. It is not that big of a stretch going from Harpocrates to Harpo Marx, although his brother Groucho said that he was named after his harp playing ability. Right, so as we continue to read and we go into the comments, you have one individual says, that's something that they didn't know. Then you have New Epic Author. He says, thanks. I am glad you enjoyed my post. And as you continue to read, it says the Egyptians had a god named Set or Seth who was married to Isis, and Sunset is named after Set. All right, and then he commented again. He says, Harpo had golden blonde hair, and Harpo wore a curly reddish blonde wig. Right? So, what's the significance of Harpo wearing a blonde hair? And not only does he wear blonde hair, but he's also the god of silence, the god of confidentiality, the god of secrecy. For you brothers who actually pay attention, and for you brothers who actually watch and listen for what's going on, then you would say to yourself, every time Kanye makes these quote-unquote outlandish or controversial statements, he always goes missing for a few months. And the next time he pops back up with blonde hair. What is going on with that? That's what you brothers should be doing at the least, is asking yourself, what is going on with that? Please keep in mind that Hippocrates was always depicted with blonde hair. He was, of course, the god of silence, as we've already established. And he was always depicted with his finger over his mouth, meaning that he was holding on to the secrets that was given to him. Now, when you actually put some thought to this and think about what's going on in today's society, think about celebrities, think about the images that they take, and how many celebrities will you see randomly with a finger over their mouth? Well, we see right here in this scripture in Deuteronomy chapter 19 and verse 15, it says, "One witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity, or for any sin, and any sin that he sinneth at the mouth of 2 witnesses, or at the mouth of 3 witnesses, shall the matter be established." What was the point of us reading that scripture in Deuteronomy? Well, it's because we have to have more than one witness, or more than one way of proving our point. Right, so we're going to start off by looking at this image of Chris Brown. He has his right eye covered and his left eye showing. That is also for Horus. But for the sake of this video, we're looking at the blonde hair. And see, what he does is he always dyes his hair blonde so you wouldn't think anything of it. But this is clearly an ode to his superiors. Chris Brown isn't giving up any secrets. All you have to do is look at his Indigo album cover, and it'll tell you everything that you need to know. All right. So here is YK Osiris with blonde hair. And Osiris, he had a video come out maybe about a year ago talking about how the industry is wicked, how he doesn't really want to be there. And Osiris has been going through what? Embarrassment rituals, owing everybody money, crying on camera. Right? But that was him trying to break his silence. So here we have an image of Rihanna with blonde hair. I don't think it's too much that really needs to be said about Rihanna. But Rihanna, she's clearly an adherent to the Babylonian Kemetic Mystery School system. And even the name Rihanna is for the mother goddess Rhiannon. But that's a different topic for a different day. Right, so here we see Dennis Rodman, who I don't think you have to be privy to a lot of information to see that that man is mind controlled. Right, especially when he was with the Chicago Bulls. Right, and he was pretty much showing who he was, a mind controlled sex slave. Right, and then we have the Pied Piper, of course, Mr. Robert Kelly. With him calling himself the Pied Piper, he was pretty much letting it be known that he has no problem having sex with children, because that's what the Pied Piper was known for. But yes, Mr. R. Kelly was controlled. His mind is controlled as well. And once they had no more need for him, where is he now? Right. So here is a image of Harpo or Hippocrates with his finger over his mouth. Right. And here's another image of Hippocrates with his finger over his mouth. And here's another image of Hippocrates with his finger over his mouth. And here's a fourth image with Hippocrates with his finger over his mouth. Now, the very first image I showed, that looks like an ancient Egyptian idol, so therefore it looks slightly different than the Greek. But the point remains the same. All right. So we see here that we have Rihanna with shh on her finger, as her finger is in front of her mouth. Right? Rihanna isn't giving up any secrets. And I understand that Rihanna has a lot of fans, but this is just the truth. All right, so here we see Ariana Grande doing the same thing. Here we have Miss Beyonce, who is a well-known witch. Beyonce is to the point where I can say she is a sorcerer. She's not even a witch. Okay, now here we have Madonna, another well-known witch, right? Telling you to shh. She's not giving up any secrets. She'll never tell, right? And here we have Mr. Pharrell and Mr. Kendrick Lamar, right? And a lot of brothers, they get upset, man, because Kendrick Lamar, he would tell you that, he knows he's an Israelite, but he's not an adherent to the scriptures. Therefore, brothers, a lot of brothers in Israel still have this thing about them where they're fanboys of men, right? And anytime a celebrity comes out and say, we are the Hebrews, brothers tend to lose their mind instead of just stepping back and letting the situation play out by itself, right? So here is an image of Khloe Kardashian, or Khloe Simpson. But the point remains the same. We know that in the Jenner clan, that is a witch haven of witches, right? And then we have Conan O'Brien, who is also putting his finger above his mouth, or on his mouth, I should say, right? Then we have Mr. Tom Cruise. For you brothers who have seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut, then you would know what really goes on in that world. Right? But Tom Cruise is the main character in Eyes Wide Shut, and Tom Cruise knows what goes on in Hollywood. But he's not giving up those secrets. Alright, so here is Lily Allen. Alright, and we see that she has the same tattoo that Rihanna has. Right, telling you to shh. She's not giving up any secrets. And here's our boy, Don Cheadle. Alright. Don Cheadle has he's been looking pretty good in these Marvel movies. Right, but the point remains the same. He's not giving up any secrets to what he knows. So the scripture says that we need 2 or 3 witnesses, but we have went through several witnesses. Alright. Now, let's bring it home. Here's Mr. Kanye West, right? Saying that he's not giving up any secrets, but the thing is, Kanye is trying to break out of his MK Ultra programming, right? And he's stated multiple times that he's willing to die about it. Kanye said, I don't care if you have me on camera having sex with a goat, because that's the type of stuff that they will threaten you with. They will get you high or drunk out of your mind and have you on camera doing things that you wouldn't do if you were sober or if you were conscious of what was going on. So that's the reason he stated that. When it comes to someone, specifically a celebrity, saying that our people are the people of the book, our people are the original Jews or the original Israelites or the original Hebrews, why is that so controversial when a celebrity says that? Well, it's extremely controversial because the so-called black man has the most spiritual power walking the earth, and it's not a second close. It's not a second closest, right? So when the so-called black man gets his spirit right, it's going to lead him to getting his mind right. And once he gets his mind right, he's going to get the mind of his wife right. And once he gets the mind of his wife right, he's going to get the mind of his children right. And once that happens, the so-called black man starts to build back a culture, right? I don't care what anyone says. We do not have a culture in this society. That is why we are at the bottom of this society, because all of these other nations or races, They stick together. They have a set code that they live by. The so-called black man, you don't know what the so-called black man is doing. You don't know if you live in a quote-unquote ghetto. You don't know what your next door neighbor is doing. You don't know who your next door neighbor is worshiping, right? That's why they do not want us to know that we are the people of the book, because that would force us to come back to our power, our God. And once we do that, the possibilities are limitless. So, long story short, they don't want celebrities telling us who we are, because that's the way to keep us senile and docile, right? But the question would be, if we don't know who we are there other nations or other races of people that know who we are, right? You will see a lot of so-called black people saying, oh, Africans don't like us. They think they're better than us. Why? Why would you think that a so-called African dislikes you, man? Or when you go to a so-called African and say, hey, we're the same people, and they tell you, no, we are not. They know who they are, and they know that you know, they know that you don't know who you are, right? So a lot of us, we come off as ignorant to them because they know their history. We don't know ours. But like I said, are there other nations or other races of people that know who we are? Let's see.
This video is to show you who the true Hebrews or Jews are, or Yehudim. The people in Israel right now are not Jews. They're Khazars. Your true Jews or your true Yehudim are the so-called black person, or African American, as you like to call them sometimes. They're not African at all. They're the true Jews. They're the true Hebrews that were brought over here on ships, which the scriptures mention. If y'all are going to believe these lies, you're going to get misled, and that's the purpose of this. It's not about color, it's not about this and that, it's about identity theft. People's identity was stolen. They are the true Yehudim. They are God's or Yahuwah's chosen tribe, or chosen people. Not the people in Israel. People in Israel came from the Khazarian region in Russia. And these evil people, who were a warlike people, threw their own people under the bus and made them suffer in Germany. Yes, it was a very terrible, terrible thing.
Second of all, I do want to clarify too that I know that the black people that are here in the United States now are not African. I know that. The term African American is what the white man has pinned on them. Basically, I feel to try to keep hiding their true identity. They want them to think they're African, so they won't find out who they really are. So I know, and I wanted to clarify that I know the black people here are the true Hebrew Israelites. I know that. So let me just get that out there and clarify that. Also, something interesting that some people may not know is that actually Africans, they don't like the black race that's over here. They don't like them. They hate them.
Right.
And the only conclusion that I can come to is that because the Africans know that they're the true Hebrew Israelites. They know they're the chosen people of God. So therefore they hate them. That's the only conclusion that I can come to. So I just wanted to clarify that I do know that they are not African. Just because the white man got them from the continent that we now know as Africa doesn't make them African. I mean, okay, I live in America, but I'm not American. Right. I mean, it was not my choice to be here.
Felt compelled to make this video, for lack of a better term, and I'm going to entitle it, I'm Sick of White People. And yes, I'm white, and the reason I'm sick of white people is because no matter how much fact, No matter how much scripture you all are presented with regarding who the Hebrews in the Bible were and who they are in the earth today, which would be the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, the Native Americans, the Aborigines, no matter what you're presented with, you still want to dispute this and maintain your superior, pompous, arrogant attitudes. And it makes me sick. I come across these so-called biblically based websites, and listed for the 12 tribes of Israel are all European countries. What is wrong with you people? You should be ashamed of yourselves. After everything these people have been through at the hand of the white man, slaughtered, ran off their land, sold into bondage, had their heritage stolen from them, would it kill you? Would it kill you to acknowledge the fact that these could be God's chosen elect? Well, evidently so. And unfortunately, in the words of King Solomon, there's nothing new under the sun. As a matter of fact, I'd like to read what King David had to say regarding this. And this is from Psalm 83. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They have a confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, that's you white people, Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, the Hagareans, Gebal and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines, and with the inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur also is joined with them. They have holpen the children of Selah. So, yeah. You know, despite the fact that there's an African tribe with a piece of the Ark of the Covenant, and despite the fact that it's been proven that Native American tribes wrote in ancient Hebrew, a very, very ancient form of Hebrew, you still want to think that you're Israelites. And I hate to break it to you white people, but you are not. You are Edom. You are Edomites, the descendants of Esau, Jacob's brother. And I guess this is where that term comes from, the white man is the devil. Well, in this case, the truth, it hurts oh so bad.
And if they don't know who they are, I don't know how they can be caught up with them. You know, it's the start. You need to know who you are before you make any other progress. You know, it states in the Bible that the Most High's people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. You know, that knowledge is thinking that they're black, they're Africans, they come from Africa, the motherland. No, they don't even realize that they predate Africa. They're from Israel. They ran into Africa, and they don't even have anything to do with Africa. They have everything to do with Israel, though, and that is very important because Israel was promised a very big promise by the Most High, and in order for them to receive that, they must at least acknowledge their nationality. Deuteronomy 28, you can clearly read how they fell and they would be cursed in the future to come over on cargo slave ships, and they did. That was the American slave trade. Sorry, the American Continental Atlantic slave trade, whatever it's officially called. That was their curse, and that was brought about by the Most High because they fell as a nation. They sinned, but yeah, it's really clear. Like, no other people on the earth ever went into slavery by cargo slave ships except these so-called, African Americans, which are clearly Israelites.
The problem is, you Israelites, you black people in this country, what do you say about them? You call them animals or something? I call them inferior. I call you slaves. We turn you into slaves, and when we didn't need it no more, we kick you out of Israel, out of Egypt and out of Africa. We sold you to America, and that's where we want you to stay, and we don't want you back in Africa again. Now, you black people in this country, it's time for you to wake up and realize that this stink doo-doo eating African does not care about you. He's not your people. He hates you, and that's why he sold you out of Africa. And you admit this, right?
Huh?
You're admitting that today on 40
the white man is not a devil. We sold you to the white man.
Right.
If we had sold you to our devil, you would not be alive today. That killed you already.
Now let's get back to your
devil.
You did.
We don't want you to die yet, so we didn't
Didn't
take
you
the devil.
chop our heads off in slavery and all that, sacrifice it to your God?
We ate it. What do you mean sacrifice it?
Say it again?
We ate the goddamn heads when we chopped them off. We didn't sacrifice you.
Oh,
We used to eat your assholes over there.
in Africa.
Yeah.
Before you
You
sold us.
forgot that we used to eat the men over. We used to
Before
eat
you
people.
sold us.
Yeah.
You used to eat
And then when we got fed up of your flesh, it was no good anymore. And we thought it was unclean. We decided to sold you into slavery to get rid of you. In case you multiply and subdue the earth over there.
Okay, now, but let's get back to the point because you're trying to get away from it. Why wasn't he able to stop the hand of the Lord, the Israelite God, the God of Israel, from delivering his people from such a powerful, mighty nation? How come your God didn't do that? Let me tell you.
We didn't stand up for Pharaoh and save Pharaoh's eyes. We said, drown in the Red Sea. We said, get your assholes, you Israelites, out of your goddamn country and take your God with you. And we don't want to see you back to you anymore.
That's a lie. You were forced to let go the children of Israel.
No matter how we were, it doesn't matter. We were glad to see you how
I know you was glad. You was
right.
glad because you was getting your asses
And you
kicked.
came back.
You was
and we
glad.
kicked you out again.
glad because you was getting your asses kicked.
No, it's when
over
you
there.
came back, we decided to sell you.
You was glad.
You know what? When they came
was
back,
glad.
when you came back to Africa,
You was
we sold
glad
you to
because you
slaves.
was getting your asses kicked. That's why. Okay, now listen.
We were beating your assholes with whip and turning into slaves. How could we get our asses kicked? We were beating your assholes with whip.
Yeah?
And making you burden, making you carry, making you into slaves. We were whipping your asses every day.
Right, but you know what? Okay, right. He said that the problem is you Israelites, you black people in this country. What do you say about them? You call them animals or something?
I call them inferior. I call you slaves. We turn you into slaves, and when we didn't need you no more, we kick you out of Israel, out of Egypt and out of Africa. We sold you to America, and that's where we want you to stay, and we don't want you back in Africa again.
Okay, so we see that we have other nations or other races of people who know that we are Israel. They know exactly what happened to us. They know our history, right? And they read our scriptures. And it's pretty clear what happened to us if you just read our scriptures. Now, a major misconception amongst us is that we all came over here by way of slavery, which couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. We already had individuals that were here, and we had individuals that came from Europe during the quote-unquote religious wars or race wars, right? But for the individuals that came here by way of slave ships, we do know that they came from West Africa specifically, right? So what is in the land of West Africa, or what was there? Okay, so right here we are looking at a map of quote-unquote Negro land, which was located on the west coast of Africa. Right, and if you look to the left of your screen, at the bottom, you can see Kingdom of Judah, or Wider Slave Coast. All right. Now, what's significant about that? Well, Judah is known as the fourth son of Jacob, aka Israel. All right. So, what's going on is they are telling us exactly where the tribe of Judah was during the time of the transatlantic slave trade. All right, let's take a closer look here. All right, so do you see that? Where it says Kingdom of Judah or Kingdom of Wida? What is the significance of that? Well, let's see. Right. Okay, so let's do some reading. So the Kingdom of Wida, known locally as Glexwi or Glehu, but also known and spelt in old literature as Hueda, Wida, Judah, Awida, Wida, Juida, and Judah, Yoruba, Igelefe, or French, Awida, right? And also the Yorubans that you see today, they are descendants of Israel, right? But it says was a kingdom on the west coast of West Africa, on the coast of West Africa, in what is now Benin. It was a major slave trading area which exported more than 1 million Africans to the United States and Brazil before closing its trade in the 1860s. In 1700, it had a coastline of around 16 kilometers under King Hafan. This was expanded to 64 kilometers or kilometers, or 40 miles, and stretching 40 kilometers, 25 miles inland. The kingdom of Waido was centered in Savi. It also had connection to the city of Waida. The last ruler of Waido was King Hafan, who was deposed in 1727 when Waido was conquered and annexed by the kingdom of Dahomey. All right, and so it says the name Waida is an anglicized form of Huida, pronounced Huida, from the Huida-Gibi language and people of Benin. Today, the Beninese city of Waida bears the kingdom's name. To the west, it is the former Popo Kingdom, where most of the European slave traders lived and worked. The area gives its name to the native Waida bird and to Waida Galley, a slave ship turned pirate ship owned by pirate captain Black Sam Bellamy. Its wreck has been explored in Massachusetts. According to one European who visited in 1692 through 1700, Waida was a center of the ancient Africa slave trade, selling some thousand slaves a month, mainly taken captive from villages in the interior of Africa. For this reason, it has been considered a principal market for slaves. When a great chief called king by Europeans could not supply the traders with sufficient slaves, he would supplement them with his own wives. Not wife, wives. It says robbery was common. Every person in Waida paid a toll to the king, but corruption among slave traders was endemic. Despite this, the king was wealthy and clothed in gold and silver, which were otherwise little known in Waida. He commanded great respect and unusually was never seen to eat. The color red was reserved for the royal family. The king was considered immortal, although successive kings were recognized as dying of natural causes. Interregna, even if only a few days, were often occasions of plundering and anarchy by the populace. The traditional African society isolated women, protecting them from the larger society or other men. Fathers were recorded with more than 200 children by their numerous wives. All right, so sounds like polygyny always existed. A man always had more than one wife, whether he was king or just a regular man. All right, but we can see that, they called it the kingdom of Judah or the kingdom of Huida. But it's flat out telling us that our ancestors were taken on a slave coast there and brought to the United States, right? Now, let's see something. Let's look at something.
Okay, it's a hot day today, and we're about to go over this road, and what they're saying, this is the road of where the slaves went, the road of no return. So, Nini, just tell us some things about where we're about to go.
Okay, we go to the ocean where they put the slaves in the ships, but the slaves came from the interior. They were bought from the chiefs, from the kings in the interior, and the king got in return cannons and weapons.
This gate right here is known as the Gate of No Return.
And so literally they were walking this way to get on a ship. And can you imagine the things in which they were thinking going through their head, going to the ship, and this is a place of no return?
Pour toute l'Afrique,
For all the Africa,
il y a 4 ports.
for all the in all Africa, they have 4 gates. The population of the slave that went out here through this gate was the most slaves.
When they did not have enough chains, they cut a tree, they made a log out of it, and they cut 3 holes in it.
Came from.
And they put 3 holes, and they put the log on top of their head so that the 3 stay together, walk together behind each other.
How many people were side by side?
600 walked side by side.
You know, it's like an arrow. It means that this road that you come through, it have only one entry. That is no returning back, is the unknown destination. During that road here, all sorts of things happen with the slaves. They can sleep with them, they can beat them, they can do so many things there. Violence.
On peut dire l'abolition en 1848. Mais en 1846, c'est le dernier bateau.
The last ship went on 1846, and it was then they don't got any other ship came in for slavery.
Ici, sur les 4 poteaux, il y a hommes et femmes qui sont en genoux.
In all this, you see men and women, men and women, you know, in the forts.
They put a tattooage, they burn it in the back here. The name of the master.
When they do that, they cry, so they go now and buy some iron to close their mouth.
Close their mouth.
Yeah, that's why their mouth is closed.
Before they planted the tree, you can see on the picture on the wall there, they buried a person alive, and then they planted the tree.
Alive, and they plant the seed. Is how he died. So his spirit will be communicating with the spirit of the slave who died over there. So that's how their spirit, when they die there, their spirit will come back here. When you go to Gore, that is in Senegal, or you go to Ghana, Elmina, and all these other slavery gates, you will see some small houses where they keep the slave before they took them. But in Benin, they have no houses. They don't want to leave any trace, any sign, because they know that if they leave sign, it's going to be terrible.
Although we are coming as God's Green Africa and we want to do resources and things like that, it is important that you understand the history of the country that you're going in. But can you imagine the people walking from here and the thoughts of what's going on in their mind?
Now, brothers, this is where your critical thinking skills come into play, right? Because, you know, that video just basically told us that Africans were sold into slavery. Didn't say which Africans, didn't say, you know, what tribe or what country or anything like that. Of course, they told us that they were in Benin, right? And as we read, the kingdom of Wida or Judah was located in Benin, right? So let's see something here. This is From Babylon to Timbuktu. This is on page 84, right? And you brothers should get this book on your own and read it by yourself, all right? But let's get it. It says, In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. Right? Then it says, during the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. Now, of course, we know the term Jewish is basically when someone is trying to be politically correct, right? When they refer to so-called black men as Jewish. But we know that, we're Jews, right? So then it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Right? Then it says, this prophecy and all the residue of the prophecies contained in Deuteronomy 28, verse 15 through 68, befell the black Jews after they disobeyed the laws of God. Many nations transported the Jews into slavery, and the sons of Israel transmigrated into every continent. Brothers, our people are everywhere. And as you know, in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, it tells us that we are going to go back into Egypt or bondage by way of slave ships, right? And we know that's how we ended up in bondage in America, by way of slave ships, right? Now, to be a son of Israel or a son of Jacob, that means that you are a descendant of Shem, because Shem himself was a forefather of Abraham, a forefather of Isaac, which makes him a forefather of Jacob, which makes him a forefather of the Israelites, right? So now, let's get into some definitions. So, right here, we have the term Shemitic, right? And it says definition of Shemitic. But it doesn't give a definition. It just says another word for Semitic. But in all actuality, Semitic is another word for Shemitic, right? Because Semitic is the Greek pronunciation of Shemitic. Sem is the Greek pronunciation of Shem. Now we have Semitic. And it says relating to or denoting a family of languages that includes Hebrew, Arabic, and Aramaic, and certain ancient languages such as Phoenician, which is just the Hebrew language, and Akkadian, constituting the main subgroup of the Afro-Asiatic family, relating to people who speak Semitic languages, especially Hebrew and Arabic, right? So when you look at the quote-unquote Jewish today, do those individuals look like they are anything Afrocentric? Anything with Afro in it? No. So, just looking at the definition and looking at the people who call themselves Jewish, they don't even fit the definition. But I can tell you who does fit the definition. I can show you as well what an Afro-Asiatic individual looks like. So now that we have images of Afro-Asiatic individuals, let's get a few scriptures, man, because the Ten Commandments, they go directly into what Mr. Kanye West was talking about. So, the book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse 13, it says, "Thou shalt not kill." Right? And we know right here, killing is talking about premeditated murder. Right? Then it says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." Adultery is when a man sleeps with another man's wife, or a woman sleeps with a man who isn't her husband. Right? Then it says, "Thou shalt not steal." Well, we know our people are good for robbing one another. Right? So let's jump to verse 17. It says, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's." Right? So it's telling us that we are supposed to love our brothers, or love our people as we love ourselves, but specifically our brothers, because verse 17 is talking about coveting thy neighbor's wife. So obviously that's speaking toward men. All right, so here is the book of Leviticus, chapter 19. We're going to start at verse 11. It says, "Ye shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie to one another." Right, so, one another, that's talking about the Hebrews dealing amongst the Hebrews. Right, verse 12, it says, "And ye shall not swear by my name falsely, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord. Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning." So if you hire a man for a job and he does his job, pay that man. All right, so verse 14, it says, "Thou shalt not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but shalt fear thy God. I am the Lord. Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty, but in righteousness shalt thou judge thy neighbor." Right, so the same way you would judge a janitor, that's the same way you need to judge LeBron James. Right? So verse 16, it says, "Thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor. I am the Lord." Right? And then, of course, verse 17, it says, "Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him, or allow him to sin." Right. Then verse 18, it says, "Thou shalt not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord." Right? So those are commandments that the so-called black man is supposed to be keeping and teaching his child or his children and his wife or his wives. And when we are dealing with other so-called black men, that is a code that we are supposed to have amongst each other. That way we can, have fruitful relationships as brothers, right? Have fruitful conversations. Love our brother as we love ourselves, right? But as I stated earlier in the video, that the so-called black man doesn't have a culture in this society. Therefore, all these commandments that I just read, for the most part, so-called black people do not adhere to those. Therefore, you see our women ruling our nation of people. You see our men at the bottom of society, and you see our youth running rampant. They are out of control. Right? But if we turn back to the precepts, the commandments of the Most High, then that will force us to live righteously, to live right. And also that will force the Most High to bless us, because according to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1 through 14, if we keep the commandments, we're going to be blessed. So now let's dive into what Mr. West said about anti-Semitic comments. And what did he say that was anti-Semitic?
Now, I'm gonna say some anti-Semitic shit. I'ma fuck your bitch. I'ma kill this nigga. 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 That's the real anti-Semitic shit that the Jewish people get paid off of.
Now, what Kanye just said, that goes directly against every scripture we just read. But the point that he was making was, that's the music that is disseminated to our people for us to consume. That's what we grew up on. That's pretty much all we know, right? For the most part. So therefore, that causes a certain way of thinking, right? And what you will see is a lot of individuals will say, oh, music doesn't have an influence on me. Well, that's cap. That's cap. Because I'm 28. I'm at that age. When Chief Keef came out, cats started calling themselves Sosa, started drinking lean, you know, this, that, and the third. Future came out talking about Molly's and Perks, and all these niggas on Molly's and Percocets, right? So, you know, when individuals say that music doesn't affect them, that's a flat out lie. Now, you may have some or a lot of individuals who the music doesn't affect, but all we have to do is look at our community, man. Everybody on Demon Time, everybody talking about gang, right? Everybody talking about ops and who they smoking. Bro, y'all get that shit from music, period. But who is paying the so-called black man to make that type of music, right? And I'm not saying that the individual who is paying the so-called black man to make that type of music is at fault, because the so-called black man still has to write that music, go in the studio and drop it, right? So the action is on him. But they know that for the most part, the so-called black man or the so-called black race would pretty much do anything for $1. And those same individuals that would do anything for $1, you have to keep in mind that they will also do anything to keep their wealth, to keep their fame, to keep their status. So they'll make the type of music that they are told to make. They'll do that. They will promote things that are counterproductive to the so-called black community, right? But the ironic thing is, when you point out that there are Jewish execs at the top of these corporations, they call it anti-Semitism. Or when you say that Jewish individuals, they make money off the backs of the so-called blacks, or that they funded the Atlantic slave trade, they call it anti-Semitism. But it's just the fact of the matter, right? You put yourself in position to run the world, so accept it. I don't understand why they see that as something that's anti-Semitic to state that they run the world. It is what it is. But they also know that their rulership is going to come to an end. And it's going to come to an ugly end when it comes to an end. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Now let me little Apple move. Let me move on Apple right now. How many people want to bet their house that content is not within the first 3 songs on Apple rap music?
Nobody.
So they're gonna have to take my life before they take my people.
Yeah, man. So you can dislike what Kanye is saying. You can even dislike Kanye. You can call him an MK Ultra asset. You can say that he's mind controlled. You can say all of that. But what you can't say is that this man isn't telling the truth. What you can't say is that there's no truth to his statements. What you cannot say is that the Jewish don't run everything, right? And just another side note, when you've been in this walk for years, honestly, it's no point of going back and forth with individuals about who the children of Israel are or who the Jews are. I mean, you can tell them, but most people won't accept it. So therefore, you save yourself a headache. You save yourself a blot by going back and forth, by not going back and forth with people all day. Right? I mean, even the scriptures tell us in Proverbs chapter 14 around verse 7, you know, when we see that someone doesn't have understanding, go ahead and walk away. And it tells us that because when you are sitting there going back and forth with someone who clearly don't know what they're talking about, and you spend an extended amount of time going back and forth with them, to the person that's outside looking in, it just looks like two individuals that don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they're not coming to a conclusion. Right? And of course, according to Romans chapter 1, you know, Paul tells us that reprobates, they love to debate. So it will behoove you brothers to make your point, state your piece. People can agree or disagree, doesn't really matter, and move forward. So with all that being said, man, this is all that R.A.R.A. Yo.